This is Take Flight with Mark Whittle.
Welcome to Take Flight. I'm Mark Whittle, former city worker turned performance coach. And this is your place for inspiration and education on ways to optimize your performance and find your purpose.
It is with regret that, Brittany, you're fired.
What was it like being fired from The Apprentice?
When the finger pointed at me.
You're fired.
Oh my gosh. When I got onto The Apprentice was when it was like I was at the peak of learning on how to control my thoughts, how to be grateful, and it completely changed my life. If you feel nerves, it's because you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and stepping out of your comfort zone means that you're developing.
Yeah.
But some days it's not like that, and it really isn't a linear process. It's up and down. Now launching a business called OOMPH, which is a clean energy drink that can give you the energy you want with the health benefits.
Cabin crew, passengers, prepare for takeoff.
Welcome to the Take Flight podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for having me on. I'm so excited.
This is great, isn't it?
I know.
So, we've already established that we've had the same breakfast.
Yes. Breakfast of champions, we said. So it's a good start. Just if people want to know, it was protein porridge, organic porridge with fruit and specifically banana.
I think it's worth saying as well, like having met you like half an hour ago, like your energy is amazing. We've had several encounters with people. The woman at the coffee shop who was amazing, you said she loved you on The Apprentice.
She was so nice. That made my morning straight away.
Yeah, but I think I can literally see people as you come into the room or like you smile at them, like their smile change.
That is so nice. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll touch on it, but energy is something that I find like so important, and it's something that I really notice. And it's exactly the same with you as well. You've got such like a calm, engaging energy and presence. So that's one of the reasons already I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Me too. So is it like a conscious thing for you? Like when you saw me, it gave me like a big hug. Is that like a conscious thing, or is it just you being like what is it?
It's the way that I've been my whole life. It's just been my natural personality. But I think as I've learned more about energies and how it transfers to other people, that's when I've kind of consciously been working on it. I think when I was younger, I would almost be even more over the top than I am now. And it was almost a bit like erratic. So as I've gotten older and I've calmed down, I've kind of been able to channel that into a way that's like warm and welcoming.
Yeah.
But it's always been the way that I've been. But I've always been really good at like building relationships with people and having friendships. Like I have a lot of friends from so many different like backgrounds and places, and that's something that I was like, oh, I'm quite good at making friends with people and building relationships. And then as I learned more and more about energies and personality ways, that's when it kind of made sense to me a bit more.
Yeah. And when we were speaking in the coffee shop, you mentioned like the books that you read when you started to recognize like the difference between maybe the younger you when it was very high energy, maybe even erratic, you said.
Yeah.
And then now more like, welcoming, warming.
That's correct. So when I was younger, I didn't really understand about how you could control your personality, control your thoughts, control the way you are. From learning material as I've got older, from reading books specifically, I've been able to kind of channel that and use that to kind of work on myself professionally. And I think I can see how much my life has changed since I started learning and consciously working on this material. It would have been when I got onto The Apprentice was when it was like I was at the peak of learning on how to control my thoughts, how to be grateful, how to kind of manifest a future I want. And it completely changed my life. And it was the year that I started reading and learning and developing these skills that my life changed. And I just think that it's almost evidence that it works. Like if you work on yourself, you do reap amazing benefits. And I'm really excited to talk about that as well today.
I can literally feel the energy emanating off you. Like I feel something as well because I have the same belief.
Yeah.
So when it resonates with you deeply. So what triggered the learning? Like what triggered you to look for these books, or were you introduced to them by somebody, or how did it come about?
It's really funny. I worked originally in the hospitality industry, and it is very fast paced. You're working so many hours, you're ending at midnight and you're getting up again at 6 a.m. And my life revolved around work. So I didn't have time to have any hobbies or kind of have any interests. I was constantly working. Lockdown hit, and suddenly I was put in a position where I had all this free time and I didn't know what to do. And I said to my mum, I don't know how I'm not going to work. And she was like, you're sad then. She said, you need to work on yourself, get some hobbies and get some interests. So that's when I started to basically read and learn. And my friend pointed me in the direction of The Secret, which is obviously kind of the first book that everyone reads. And then once I kind of had a feel for that, I actually watched the film and looked at a lot of the people that spoke in that film. And one of them was Bob Proctor.
Nice.
Found Bob Proctor, started listening to a lot of his material, and then from there, that's when it opened this huge rabbit hole of like a crazy world and so much information that I started learning and channeling. And then it was maybe a year and a half after that my life changed and I got onto The Apprentice. And I do honestly put it down to working on myself and learning that material.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I know it's like The Secret is kind of, you know, it has controversial opinions, but the material is so true. And it almost is like a secret, right? It's the things that we've forgotten about. We've fallen into a pattern of, you know, this kind of rat race
Absolutely.
of having our priorities in the wrong order. And not for me to say what is right or wrong, but what I've learned as well along this journey is, you know, lots of us are unconscious to the secret, but, you know, manifesting and energies and frequencies. It's funny, I was literally talking to Ollie Ollerton about Bob Proctor. Yeah. He's doing the Bob Proctor course.
Amazing. I would love to do that. Everything that man says inspires me so much.
Yeah. And we were just talking about the Joe Dispenza course as well.
And that's what we were saying as well.
We both want to go on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you look at The Secret, even if you just strip it back, if you don't necessarily believe in the manifesting, the thoughts that you think and the energies that you feel and kind of the elevated states that you put out, they do bring something positive to your life. So at that bare minimum, The Secret taught me, okay, I'm in control of my thoughts. Instead of just going through the day and being annoyed I'm stuck in traffic or being annoyed about this email or worrying about unnecessary things, it taught me to consciously start basically vetting my thoughts and kind of questioning that your thoughts are not you can change them. And that was the first start for me, and that's kind of where it all begun. It was like a light bulb moment where I was like, wait, the way that you are experiencing life is purely internally how you are interpreting it, and you can control that. And that was the first thing for me where I was like, oh my God, life is about to get amazing.
So how do you control it? For people listening who say they've never heard this before, or they've heard it before, but they don't actually grasp like tactically or tangibly what to do. How do you do that?
It's so funny because I've read so much material and listened, and I feel like I know a lot about it, but putting it into practice is a completely other story. It's not a linear process. Some days I feel amazing and I wake up and my energies are just perfect throughout the day, but some days it's not like that, and it really isn't a linear process. It's up and down. But the first place that I started was basically consciously practicing gratitude. So what I would always do is I would look at my internal states, the way that I was feeling. Do I feel happy? Do I feel sad? Do I feel anxious? That's where I would begin. And then I started looking at practices that worked for me, that helped me change from anxious or negative to feeling positive. And I based it all on the way that I was feeling, because that's objective for you to monitor. That's a way for you to know if it's working. And I started doing certain practices, and I basically just continued and adapted what was working. So the best things for me were firstly practicing gratitude consciously. So in the morning, I would wake up and write down things that I was grateful for. And then that set me in a really positive, elevated state for the rest of the day. Another thing is meditation. That really changed a lot for me because it allows you to control the way that you respond to any obstacles in life. So now instead of being stuck in traffic and being angry, that can kind of just go straight over my head and I can be like, it's fine. I've just got to wait 10 minutes. It's not a big deal. And then the third one was just reading more and more material, because when I read the books, it really motivates me and just makes me know that this is what I have to do. I have to try and stay positive. And those are the three for me that are the most important that helped me.
Wow. We really are like what we think we become, right? Yeah. That's literally, that's what happens. So by doing the gratitude, I talk about this metaphor a lot with my clients, right? There's this wide open ski slope, fresh powder, untouched. And that's our mind when we're kids, when we're born into the world, untouched, you know, innocent. Then a skier goes through the tracks, and that's a thought, right? And then we get all these thoughts going off and all these things are happening. We're thinking all these different things about the world, about ourselves. And then the same thought happens. So the skier goes down the same track, and then the same thought happens, and the groove gets deeper to the point where it's automatic. And that's how we get stuck. And in our old age, you can see people who are so deeply ingrained in their thought patterns and the events that happened to them and the things that they believed in as kids, because that groove is just so automatic. But what you're doing with gratitude is you're shifting maybe a victim thought or a negative thought just to be positive. And by doing that every single day, you're training your brain to see the best or be optimistic, basically.
Absolutely.
It's
And they
amazing.
say it's like growing a muscle. So the more that you work on it, the more the neurons in your brain are lit up in that certain direction, the better you get at it. And then the more that you recognize the positives. So some people say that it's manifestation, but it could just be the fact that you are noticing the things around you that are positive because that's the way that you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I love that what you said about limiting beliefs. When you're a child, you just digest so much information into your subconscious. You don't know that small things that happened in your childhood are what you believe now about yourself, and you can change that. And even now I'm really trying to like look inside and work out the things that I have that are beliefs that are limiting me. And it just changes the whole way that you view everything, because you're like, wait, that does not have to be correct how I view myself of that. And I'm sure you've worked on a lot of those things on yourself as well from discovering it.
Yeah, I'm loving this, by the way, Brittany. This is amazing.
I'm loving this conversation.
In the coffee shop, you said like, oh, where did you start or how did you start to know what to look at, right? So the obvious place to start is like big events or traumatic events. So everyone can kind of do that. Not everyone's had a really traumatic upbringing, but like if you've got big things that happened in your childhood, like in your family or anything like that, they're the obvious places to start. Generally, people say you are what happened to you, but more accurately, you're what you made of that thing that happened to you, like what you made that mean.
That's so good to think,
So like if something happened, I'll ask you about some examples for yourself in a minute, but the other thing to do, right, if it's hard to think of big events if you haven't had those things, then basically in childhood what we translate is the things that we were rewarded for and the things that we were punished for. So if we can look back at the way we were treated as kids, like where were we punished and where were we rewarded, that's going to be a pretty good indicator of like what we've turned into. So then question where we were punished and where we were rewarded by our parents, teachers, anyone else, right? And then change that if it's not working anymore.
That's such a good place to start. I'm even thinking now back and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like a lot of things making sense just from that.
Yeah, like what?
One of the biggest ones that I had was caring so much about what people thought that it would actually kind of stop things that I was doing. And when I realised that what someone thinks about you actually has no impact on your life, it kind of like was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And I said, I'm never going to allow what people think of me to stop me from doing anything again. But when I kind of put it back, it's like when I was in school, my mum used to be really strict about like the grades that I got and the performance that I had to do. And then now in my older age, everything I do, I think, I need to check that my mum thinks that that's okay and things like that. And then it goes back to the way that I was scared of her basically as a child when I was in school. So it's really funny to look at things like that. What was one that you kind of worked on that you identified?
Oh God, there's been quite a few. Rejection. Yeah. Fear of rejection. Because these things are interesting, right? No matter how much work you do on yourself, there's always something else that comes up and then you're like, fucking hell, that's been so obvious, like, but I'm only just seeing it now. So fear of rejection, which has led to all sorts of different like problems for me. My answer to that was to be ultra assertive and at times ultra aggressive, because if I was, then I could use that as the reason why I was rejected. In my mind, right? I might not have been rejected. That's what I'm making it mean. So if I was like super assertive and even confrontational, then I can say, well, it's because they couldn't handle the confrontation or they couldn't handle the, whatever it was. If they said no, that's me protecting myself. So I think people go one or two ways with that. You either go super aggressive on the front foot, or you go like super passive and curl up.
There's one that I'm working on at the moment that I've identified is like that I've learned that I hate conflict. I don't like having difficult conversations or kind of like having conflict conversations. Even though it ends up sorting out a situation, it gives me anxiety to kind of like have difficult conversations with people. And I'm finding it a really difficult one to work on because I've had it my whole life and it's difficult to kind of put yourself in that situation to work through it. But that's kind of one that I've identified as well that I'm struggling to work past.
Because what? Because conflict equals what?
I think the thing that I worry about is once something's been said, you can't take it back. And I worry about kind of like damaging something.
Something you've said.
Yeah, for example, so for me, it will be like asking people for money when they owe you money. I find that a really difficult conversation to have. And I kind of learnt that in The Apprentice. Like I found it difficult to speak badly of the candidates and my friends, even though it was sometimes something to do with the task, like having that conversation and pointing out people's bad points. I just find really difficult, like having conversations like that.
Well, if you're somebody who's optimistic and looks for the positive in life, then that would make sense, right? I'd say if it's a conflict thing, that means that you're being faced with somebody else's opinion, which brings you back to the FOPO, fear of people's opinions. which was what you said about your
It's
mum
all
and the grades.
linking together.
So one of these things that I'm incredibly fascinated about, and it's mapped out in The Secret, it's mapped out in Joe Dispenza's work,
Yeah.
is this kind of idea of manifesting
Yeah.
or bringing things to reality. Because there are two realities, right? There's the reality that we sit in, that we walk around in all day, and there's the reality that we create in here.
Yeah.
It's a reality just as much as the thing that we're living in.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear specifics around when you started to do this work.
Yeah.
Because you said it was like a year and a half later and then you're on the TV show.
Yeah.
And there's no coincidence in that for me.
So the way that my first manifestation tips were, because I didn't know how to even go about this, so I was like, okay, I'm going to constantly stay positive and I'm just going to write my goals down every single day. So I would
Same goals.
Same goals, yeah. Obviously they would amend slightly as I was kind of going through, but I'd be reading the material, trying to stay positive and writing my goals every single day. Morning, night, thinking about them, visualizing. And The Apprentice was always the one at the top. I said, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to start my own business. My business was just a concept. I had nothing to really back it up. I had no experience in the field. I thought applying to The Apprentice, it'll be really good experience for me to get on in a few years' time. I said, I'll just go through the process. And it was really funny. There were 2 deadline dates, and one of them was my sister's birthday, and then the other was my birthday. So I was like, oh, it's a sign from the universe. So I felt a bit positive. But yeah, so I put in my application form, and then I just kept getting through the stages. And as I got through each stage, I just kept manifesting, okay, my next goal is to get through this stage, to get through this one. And then out of 75,000 people, they gave me a call 2 months later, like, you're going on the show. And I was like, oh my gosh. It had gone from me kind of working, not even thinking about starting my own business, planting the seed in my mind, saying I want to be an entrepreneur, the best way I can get an investment and get exposure for my business, to go on TV. Just seemed like the furthest away possible goal that I could achieve. And then literally they were like, you're going on the show. And I was like, it works. That's when I knew. I was like, this stuff actually works. And then from that point, my whole life changed in absolutely every single way. And they say that when you're kind of doing the same thing every single day, you're kind of leading with your emotions and you're not opening yourself up to the possibilities, because if you do the same thing every day, you're going to get the same results. You need to start pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And every single application stage and every single interview, I've never been so scared. I remember going to one of the stages and my heart was like beating out of my chest before I had to go into one of the pitches. But even from just doing that process, I grew so much, and then my life changed. And I honestly think it was a result of me learning how to basically work with the way that things are.
Wow. So you, just to be clear, like, you literally wrote down a goal to be on the Apprentice TV show.
Yeah.
Like a year and a half before you actually...
Yeah.
And before you even started the application process?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was really funny. I handed in my application on the final day that applications were allowed to go in as well. So it all just fell into place. And then this is when you start looking at like synchronizations of events that have happened. Like specifically, you just look at, if that wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't have done this and I wouldn't have done this. And I think that the way that it kind of led to me first learning about manifestation and realizing that I wanted to go onto the show, just everything linked together. Wow. And for me, it did honestly cement that these things work, and the effort that I'm putting in is really paying off, and my life's literally about to change. And then we had about 2 months after they gave us the call to say we're going on to prepare. It was peak COVID time, so we had to go into isolation for a week before we went on the show. So we were in this hotel room on our own for a whole week, like waiting to go into the show.
God.
And oh my God, that was the biggest test of me trying to stay positive, because everything is racing through your mind. Like, you're trying to do revision for the show, you're watching old episodes, you're trying to not be fearful for what's to come. So that was a really interesting week, like definitely a test to see how well I could actually put into practice, like controlling my emotions and staying positive. But yeah, it was just the best time. It was so amazing. It was the best experiences I ever had.
What was that week like in the hotel room waiting? Like, what did you do?
So what I wanted to do was make sure I utilised the time as much as I could. So I watched Apprentice for about 9 hours a day. I'm not even joking. And to be honest, I don't think that was helpful. And then I
Really?
was watching YouTube videos on how to do branding, how to do pitching, how to do negotiation. So it was so funny when I spoke to all of the girls afterwards, they said they all did the same thing. But watching so much Apprentice, it just like made your brain go crazy, like with apprehension of what was to come. But I'm glad that I used that time, even though 3/4 of the things I didn't even end up using when I went into the house, 3/4 of the skills. But yeah, basically just researching and preparing for what was to come. And trying to do a bit of exercise and trying to do rest. Yeah. It was quite testing that week because it felt like the longest week of my whole entire life. And then after that, when they come and pick you up, that's it. You have to give your phone in. No phone, no contact with the outside world. When you go in the house, you get to speak to your family for 10 minutes a week, and it's in like a controlled conversation. So it was another test of the process. I'm very close to my family, and anything that happens, I call up my mum and tell her and go to her for advice. But yeah, you really are like completely on your own in the process because you can't just call up your friends for moral support when you're in there.
Wow, what a growth experience though. I was saying to you before, like with running a business, I don't get time to keep up with the TV anymore, but my favourite reality show by far is The Apprentice. It was the one that I always, like when I was in the city as well, I was always like, I'd love to go on there. So just what was it like the whole process? Like obviously the application process you've explained, which was like a grueling test and then waiting to get on there. But what was it actually like when you get on screen and you're actually like going into the boardroom, you're doing all the activities?
I remember being sat outside the first boardroom and I was so nervous because I've just never done anything like this. Obviously, you're nervous. Walked in front of Lord Sugar, and it was the most surreal moment because I'd watched it for 15 years on the TV. Suddenly, it was like being inside the box of the television. I was like, this is so surreal. Like, I've seen this so many times, and now it's me. So that was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I just cannot believe I was here. And that's when you get to kind of like eye up the competition for the first time because I hadn't seen any of the other candidates. It's so funny to look back and like think of your first impressions of the other candidates versus now that I know them really well. But walking into that first boardroom, the energy was fierce. You could honestly cut the tension with a knife because what you see on the filming, there's always like 15 minutes of dead silence while production like sorts stuff out. So you're sat there in a silent room. When you have to wait in the waiting room before you go in, they show like 30 seconds of you outside. Half an hour sometimes you're sat out there in dead silence, like waiting to go into the boardroom. It just really, really does add up the intensity. But yeah, going into that first boardroom was just surreal. It's the only word that I can say. And when Lord Sugar first speaks to you and first says your name, you're like, I cannot believe it. It was just crazy. I was like, what am I doing here? When you go into the first task as well and you start getting to know everyone's personalities and you start learning the process, straight away you're like, okay, I am here. I am not losing this opportunity. Let's boss this and let's get to the end.
Amazing.
And it is the most testing process because not only do you have to deal with every single one of your capabilities being tested and exposed to 8 million people, you also have to deal with new skills that you've never even tried to develop before. And then also the grueling process of having no sleep. So we get up at 4 a.m. and you probably go to sleep no earlier than midnight. And then you have to get up again, and that's 6 days a week minimum. Sometimes you would be on like 3 hours sleep, and then you have 20 minutes to get ready. You're constantly on the road. Some of the pitches, we would have got up at 4 a.m. and done like 3 pitches, and then you'd have one at like 10 o'clock at night. So you have to be going for absolutely the whole day. So you're running a lot on adrenaline, and it's crazy because it's like ups and downs. So you'll have a pitch that's really important. Then you'll have like 5 hours of driving and production where you just try and get as much sleep as you can, and then suddenly you have to go up and do a negotiation, and it is crazy. It tests you in every single way. And I think sometimes the viewers are like, oh well, that's a stupid mistake they made, or why did they say that? But people are exhausted, especially by the end, and that's something that people don't take into consideration. The other thing is you have 1 split second to make a decision. So let's say you have to kind of choose a branding. Instead of having 5 days to discuss and bounce off ideas, you have 10 minutes to make that decision, and then that's it. You there's no going back. So it tests your decision-making skills, your decisiveness, the way you work with people, how you handle the pressure. So everything is exposed, basically. So the amount that I learned in that 2 months was just crazy, absolutely crazy.
What would be like the headlines, like biggest learnings and takeaways from it?
The biggest learning and takeaways from me was honestly that you can do anything that you set your mind to. And that is what has made me so strong now coming out, because if you would have spoke to me 2 years ago and said I would have been in that position, I would have said, you are crazy. It's made me learn that you can honestly do anything that you put your mind to. I never thought that I would have been able to do a negotiation or a sales pitch to some of the people that we pitched to previously. Now I'm like, bring it on, let's go. And I also think that I learned that you have to chase every single opportunity and put yourself out there, because it will change your life. I know that there would have been many people that say, oh, I would love to apply to a show like that. Just do it, because you don't know what will happen. And I think that those are the two biggest confidence boosts that I have used now to go out, get stuff done and get where I want to be.
Yeah, amazing. It's like that clip I was showing you there, like that fear is a lie. It's an illusion. We literally create this fear in our mind of whatever we think might happen.
Absolutely.
Or might happen to us, or like fail, or whatever that thing is, but it's literally just created in here.
They say that 80% of the things that you worry about never happen. And it's crazy, isn't it? I think the things that I was worried about as well was how people would perceive me on the television, and what the viewers would think of you, and having to deal with kind of hating and trolling. And if that would have been a reason that stopped me applying, I would have been so upset in myself, because again, it's going back to, why would you let someone else's opinion stop you from doing something? And I've learned that whatever you do, people will always have an opinion either way. So just block it out and carry on. But what you were saying about the fear, Nick from The Apprentice gave me this advice when it was literally the day that we were being announced, and I felt really nervous. He said, if you feel nerves, it's because you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and stepping out of your comfort zone means that you're developing. So actually try and change the word fear and actually make it the feeling of development. Because if you're always comfortable, you're never going to progress. And that really, really stuck with me now. So if ever I do feel any nervousness before something, I'm like, okay, good, I'm leveling up. I'm moving forward.
It's a trigger for growth. It's like a resistance, because we're trying to protect ourselves. Like, oh, this is going to be uncomfortable, this is going to suck, or like, but on the other side of it, you're always more proud of yourself. You become something more than you were before.
Absolutely. And the feeling of accomplishment when you've been worried to face something and you've got through it and you come out the other side and it's done, it's like the most amazing feeling. But our brains like tend not to like change. It goes back to when we were in caveman times, like sticking to the same routine kept you safe, and that's why your brain, it kind of doesn't want you to go out and change. But you have to kind of push through that. And I do also feel like that's like building a muscle in the gym, the analogy we used before. The more you do it, the easier it becomes and the more brave you become, basically. And it's just about building it up. And you can kind of develop that by start putting yourself in really small situations that are a bit out of your comfort zone. Like work out things that make you nervous and just go and do them. For me, I learned on the Apprentice that I get quite nervous public speaking. Luckily, when I watched the show back, I didn't look too nervous. But before I would go into a pitch, I would get all of the stereotypical symptoms. Like my heart would be racing. I couldn't think straight because the nerves overcame me. So now I just try and, wherever I can, put myself in situations where I'm like forced to speak in public so that I get more used to it.
You ultimately just have to do the thing to get over it. Like, it's how fun is public speaking? Because I have that. I used to shiver before. That was my response. Did you get that?
Yes.
That my response was like, I get so nervous and short of breath, but physiologically I'd shiver, I'll get really cold. But then you watch yourself back, you don't look nervous at all, but in your mind you're thinking, fuck, what's going on?
And it's crazy as well, because when I get the adrenaline symptoms because of the nervousness, I can't even remember how the pitch went. So we'd come out of pitches and I'd be like, well, my brain wasn't working. I don't know if that was good or bad. And then I watched it back and I was like, what? I'm all right at that. I was like, wow, no one would have known. So you felt the same with public speaking as well?
Oh yeah. I think
do you still get that?
Less, because I've done it more.
Because you just put yourself into it.
I've just done it more. And I've been fortunate to do a lot of remote ones, which make it easy. So then you can speak like generally and doing this and articulate yourself more, so that when there are people there, you're like, okay, I'm kind of okay at speaking now. I'm really interested to know, what's the balance between, this is something that I struggled with when I first left the city, because I was like the salesperson, the go-getter, the hustler, then left because I hated that and I pushed all of that away. Then I realised that's not healthy either. And then you have to find this balance between like really owning you and being you, but then pulling on the tools and the techniques that you've learned as a business person to go and win and succeed. So like, how do you balance being you and your energy and everything that is your essence with the kind of strategy of business and winning, and whether that's on the TV show or the business that you built that we'll get into in a bit as well. Like, how do you do that?
It's so hard to get that balance correct. And I think if you've got your own business or if you're working in a corporate environment and you're going towards certain goals, it's so difficult to get the balance of work to life. What I do for myself is I've got my non-negotiables of things that are for me that I want to do. And that will be, I want to make sure that I can get some exercise in the day. I want to make sure that I can do some reading. I want to make sure that I can do some of my practices. And if I can get those done in the day alongside work, then I would count that as a good balance. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the sake of work. And I think that only you will know what's the right decision to do. If you're going towards a goal, I do think that there is going to be certain sacrifices you have to make, and there is going to be levels of graft that you have to do. But just don't burn out. Go, in yourself when you're pushing yourself too far. And if you are going to get to that, it ends up being more detrimental to your goal in the long run, because you end up either despising what you're going for, feeling sick, missing out on experiences in life. So I think that only you will know the balance, and you can know how far you can push yourself. But just always remember that life is also about the experiences that you have, and make sure you leave time for them. But I would be shocked if anyone could say that they had the perfect balance, because I feel like it's just impossible to get it right.
It's a constant evolving thing, isn't it?
How have you found in the balance now? What have you done to work on that?
I have a pretty rigorous routine.
Yeah.
Like I'll say in my house, I've got a sauna in my house and like a cold dip and my
That's
gym
so
in my house.
good.
So that's really amazing.
And that cuts time of travel then, so already you've got more time.
Yeah. And I always make sure I have at least 2 days at home that I'm working from home. So it's a later start to the morning. It's an easier start, and I don't book any like coaching sessions or podcasts before 10.
That's really good.
So I've always got like time to do my stuff.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing is I used to be really goal driven.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd mislabeled what a goal was.
Yeah.
I used to want the goal in the city was like money or the promotion or whatever that thing was. At the moment, the goal is to be video first with the podcast and just to become the best coach I can be. But I actually like changed how I viewed it, right? So those things aren't the goal, they're the target. Yeah. So that's what I want to achieve. The goal is who I become on the way, how I change as a person and develop and grow as a person. It's kind of like a long way of saying it's about the journey, not the destination, right? But like from a goals perspective. So who am I when I reach the goal? And sometimes I become that person or better if I don't reach it. So it was less about the outcome. And that was the target then, which then was, the byproduct is who I'm becoming along when I'm striving for that thing.
That's such a good mindset shift. And that also kind of relays into, if you're constantly thinking that happiness is going to be when you've reached that goal, 90% of the time when you get there, you realise, oh wow, this doesn't feel the way that I thought that it felt.
Yeah.
And happiness is always at the next destination. Whereas if you look at it, it's correct as the journey. Similarly, I haven't phrased it in that way, but I feel similar to you with what changes I've made is, instead of the goal being, oh, I want to achieve this, this and this, I just want to make sure that I am in a place where I feel happy in what I'm doing. And right now is what I work on. So I've got my long-term goals, again, as the target that I want to hit. But I'm very conscious of just being present now and feeling good in this present moment, because this is actually all that exists.
Yeah.
If you're constantly looking ahead or thinking to the past, you're making up a reality that isn't there. The only thing that exists right now is the present moment. So again, I have targets that I want to hit and I'll make sure I'm working towards them. But what I have changed is thinking of now. When I was younger, before I kind of went on this journey, worrying about things that had happened, worrying about opening up an email, worrying about the future. And then when I was like, wait, what is happening right now? That was a really good change for me as well. And that really helped.
This episode is brought to you by Hux. Hux is a health company created to inspire you to find your daily edge. I've been trying Hux for the last few months, and it's become my trusted health supplement of choice. And I love that its range of products can, and for me should be used every day from wake until sleep. Hux consists of high-quality, potent supplements across 4 categories. Their superfood blend provides you with 17 superfoods, including vitamin A, B, C and D, and a hit of plant protein. The hydration tablets hydrate you quickly in unbelievably good flavours. Nootropics support those focus periods and long-term brain health. And finally, Hux's sleep products with award-winning ingredients like Levagen to support your recovery through deeper, more restorative sleep. I've been using superfood and hydration for the last few months and have noticed a drastic improvement in sustained energy and my sleep. In fact, having met the team, tried the products and seen the vision, I decided to become an early stage investor myself, and I'm so excited to be a part of this journey. You'll be seeing loads more from Hux, and I can't wait to see and hear from people being supported by the products. To get involved, visit huxhealth.com or at huxhealth on all socials and use the code TF20 for 20% off all products, including their subscription. Thanks guys, I hope you enjoy.
You honestly have such a great energy.
Thank you,
Really,
so
really
do
do.
you.
Can I feel like I noticed that Lord Sugar had like that kind of feel about you as well.
Did
Do
you?
you think that's fair to say? Like, I feel like he was like quite drawn to you and liked you. Do you know what I mean? It's hard
I'd
to
like to
tell.
think so. I really hope so as well. It's very difficult when you're actually in The Apprentice to connect as such, like personally with Lord Sugar, because basically if you're in the boardroom, it's never usually a good thing. And it's always often going to be about what have you done wrong? What have you done wrong? What have you done wrong? So with Lord Sugar, he is just trying to get to the bottom of what's happened in the task. And I think that he does like honesty, and he does like people that are, if you've made a mistake, just be straight up and honest about it. And he also likes people that he doesn't want you to throw someone else under the bus. He wants it all to be like above belt and transparent. I stuck to that, and I really did stick to myself when I was in The Apprentice, and I think that he appreciated that.
What was it like being fired from The Apprentice?
When the finger pointed at me, I genuinely felt like I was going to pass out. Like, it was so surreal. I was like, oh my gosh. So from there, we kind of went into the back room with the producers, and I just remember thinking, like, is this even real? I was like, this has been the most surreal journey ever. Obviously, being so close, it's like devastating to be so close and not get there, but at the same time, like, I made sure that I was just proud of myself for how far I'd come and the experiences I'd had. And I just think at that moment I felt so grateful. I just thought I could have been just doing my normal job at this point and never have put myself out there and had these experiences. And I just looked back and I was like, look at everything that I've just done. Not only the experiences, but genuinely the people that I met have changed my life as well for such a positive way. Like, the candidates were so close. It's never been as close as we are in any other series either. Like, the girls are honestly my best friends, and the boys as well. Like, we talk all the time, we meet up all the time, and they're so collaborative and wanting to help, which is amazing. It doesn't feel competitive between us in terms of, oh no, I'm not going to promote your business. Like, everyone just wants to help each other. And you know what they say about the people that you surround yourself with, the people are the way that you will elevate. And I'm now surrounded by these amazing business people, and I'm like, I never would have been in a position to have so many friends like that, like I do now. So that was another huge thing for me. Absolutely huge.
Wow. You got the WhatsApp groups from...
Oh, yeah, we got the WhatsApp groups going on, yeah. But that's like something that has just honestly changed my life as well, having those relationships with those people. Like Harpreet, the winner, absolutely deserving winner. She calls me up all the time just being like, how can I help you? How are you doing? Just checking in. And we all help each other so much. And it's amazing to have that. Because we've gone through that specific experience as well, it really gels you in friendships because there's no one else that can actually relate to that and no one else that really knows.
Yeah.
So having that shared experience with all these people as well, like, makes the friendships even stronger.
What was your best bit about it?
My favourite bit would probably be my win as project manager. Was probably the moment. That task was just the most fun. And when we did that task, it was again like, so everything fell into place. Like, it just really felt like the universe was on my side that day. Like, and we just had so much fun. But the things that sometimes don't show in the tasks is it's very serious, but we were laughing so much. We had so much fun. By the time you get halfway through the process, not only do you want to win, but another reason you don't want to get fired is because you want to carry on, like having these amazing experiences with people. And it's just the small things, like our days off where we would all like relax around the house. Like, we'd play board games, we'd do karaoke, we would do like group gym sessions in the house. And you'd have like 3-hour car journeys where we'd just be like singing and rapping the whole way, like to the destination.
What were you
We had
rapping?
so much fun. Oh, we would rap everything. We were like Dr. Dre, Eminem,
Nice.
Busta Rhymes.
Old school. I
Old
like
school.
it.
Yeah, and the production team, they basically live with you. They're with you constantly, and they become like your closest friends as well. So that was one of my favourite tasks. But yeah, the best thing of it overall was just how much I was able to push myself out of my comfort zones and how much I learned from that. Because I feel like in a lifetime, you wouldn't get that many learning opportunities as I did in 2 months.
Huge inspiration. Huge inspiration. For anyone listening who's like thinking about doing something and isn't sure, like, listening
Just
to
do it.
that must be amazing.
Just do it.
Yeah, that's great. I want to ask you about something that was like, it was difficult to watch,
Yeah.
right, in your interview
Yeah.
when you got emotional.
Mhm.
So I thought it was really nice that you allowed that emotion to come through, you know, because it felt like you.
Yeah.
So what was happening for you in that moment?
I think I really let myself down when it came to the interview process. By the end of what you've gone through for 10 tasks, like, you're quite tired anyway. So we'd done 7 weeks of tasks, and then we had a few days off before the interviews. It was so intense, and I think it didn't help that I had watched The Apprentice since season 1, so I knew how bad it was, and I just allowed myself to get into my head, basically. And it was like everything that I've spoke about controlling your thoughts and your emotions, I just couldn't do it at that point. I was so nervous for what was to come. I lost a lot of faith in myself. I felt I had really bad imposter syndrome, and I actually allowed it to get the better of me. So when I watch the interviews now, I'm just like, if I could just do that now, I would answer these questions so much better. But I think I let myself down in the interview process, and I knew that I wasn't bringing my best self forward. I feel like I let myself down in that point. But again, in life, you have those times where I tried my best with what I had at the time, you know. And if I were to do it again, I know all the changes that I would make, and I really did learn from that. So, yeah, that's the one bit of the process where I was like, I wish that I was able to just like bring my boss bitch self, but I just kind of let myself get in my head. So you've got to learn from that. And yeah, I would do it differently next time. So I learned a lot, but it's just a bit unfortunate that it has to go on TV to 8 million people, because usually, yeah, no one else would really see. But you know what? That made me learn even more. That was really nerve-wracking, like, and you have so many people saying horrible stuff. When you go into the show, they very much ask you a lot of questions, like how you would handle the negative sides of the show. And going into it, I'm like, I wouldn't care what anyone says. But when you actually have a lot of people coming at you on social media, it's actually harder than you would think. But by the end, we basically had like nerves of steel because we'd been dealing with it for so long. So by the end, I was like, I don't care anyway. I'm not going on Twitter. But yeah, that was unfortunate. But the interviews, they were really, really intense. But I learned so much. Like, another amazing skill that I've had from the show is, you may think that you know a lot, but these people are the experts. So I took on board every single thing that they said. And I had to be in that position to have got to the interviews to be able to have any of that advice. And every single thing that the experts said, I applied to my business now to get to where I am. So it was, even though it was a negative, I turned it into a positive and took on all their feedback. So
amazing. I mean, I'd offer a different perspective. I wouldn't say you let yourself down at all. Yeah. And I'd argue that that was a far deeper growth than probably any other candidates.
Yeah.
And now you're applying it to the business that you're creating now, right?
Yeah.
So I'd argue it was probably your most valuable moment.
Yeah. That's so true. Absolutely it was. That is definitely where I did the most growth. Absolutely.
That might have been why you were meant to go on it.
Yeah.
To have that moment.
Absolutely.
I loved as well that it was all female.
Yeah.
All female finalists.
I know.
Technically semi-final, but if you're in the interview, you're finalist. Yeah. So all female finalists. That was awesome.
There were some powerful women that we had in this series, and they are so inspirational, all of them. It was so amazing when we found out that it was us final four, because we just had such a close friendship anyway. And then being able to go through that, when we turned around, I was like, I'm so proud of us all. Yeah, it was really powerful, that final four girls moment. It meant a lot to us as well, like being able to do it for like female entrepreneurs and really represent and hopefully inspire. Because what we were saying as well is, when we were growing up, you didn't see as many female entrepreneurs, but you would see Dragon's Den, you would see Deborah Meaden.
Yeah.
She would always be like, inspire me, because I realised that she's there so I can be there. And I think the more female representation that there is for younger generations to see, the more that they will have belief in themselves, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of level the playing field slightly in terms of statistics.
To get you linked up with Deborah Meaden.
Yeah. Absolutely, Deborah, if you're listening, add me on LinkedIn.
What's it like being a female entrepreneur today?
So I think that I've been in a very lucky situation now, because I've been on the show. When I walk into a room to have conversations, people feel like they already know you and you've got certain credibility because you've been on the show. But I do think that if you're a female entrepreneur in other situations, sometimes you can be overlooked and sometimes you can be underestimated. And that is something that needs to be worked on. I think that a woman would have a lot more to prove like sometimes generally when they're stepping into conversations, for example, to pitch their business, etc., because they sometimes are underestimated. And it is true, if you look at like how much VC funding goes to females, the percentage is absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, it's because they're pitching to a group of all males, they would find it harder to understand or potentially, you know, get on board with that. And that's what we need to do to kind of like balance the playing field and get more representation of female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So I feel in a lucky position, and I feel like I really want to make sure that I inspire a lot of other female entrepreneurs to not be deterred by that and to keep pushing forward. But I also think that there's been a movement where businesses are a lot more conscious that they need to level the playing field in terms of gender. And I've seen a lot of businesses now, they're looking specifically for female entrepreneurs.
Amazing.
So I'm going to a festival next week where I get to pitch to a lot of big retailers. And a lot of the questions were, is this a female-run business? And I thought that was really nice because it shows that they're consciously making an effort to make sure that more of the products that they're retailing come specifically from female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So I really think we're stepping in the right direction, and I think it's only going to go further and further. So we're in a good position at the moment. But I just want to make sure that I represent and inspire female entrepreneurs as much as possible in this journey.
Oh, you are. I was naive for a long time, but it shocks me still that there's any like, you know, pay gap or anything like that, like misrepresentation. It just blows my mind in 2022 that that's the case. So I imagine it might feel like a bit of responsibility as well on your shoulders, but yeah, please keep doing your thing. It's inspiring.
That's why we felt so empowered as well being the final four girls, because we were like, this is bigger than us.
Yeah.
This means more than that. This is really going to inspire people to go out and do it. So we felt really, really proud at that moment when it was announced. And Karen Brady had the biggest smile. She said, unquoted, well, we know one thing, his business partner is going to be a woman. And we were like, oh my God, it was such an amazing moment. It was so good.
Oh, that's amazing. So I'd love to talk about your business then. So could you sort of summarise what the business is and the brand is?
Off the back of the show, obviously there were certain critiques that I was given on the show. So I said, okay, time to kind of go back to the drawing board and make sure that we can make this viable. So I started off with an alcoholic protein drink. A lot of development and research later, and we're now launching a business called OOMPH, which is a clean energy drink. So no longer alcoholic, no longer protein specifically, but we're basically a brand of healthy energy drinks. So we've got natural caffeine, we've got BCAAs, it's got 7 B vitamins, 0 sugar, and a shot of apple cider vinegar as well. So you can get loads of health benefits at the same time as having a natural caffeine boost. So it's basically ideal for if you're going to the gym or if you want to substitute something for a coffee, and it's a way that you can basically reap the health benefits at the same time. And it's only 8 calories a can, but the best thing, it tastes really good. So that's the best thing of all. Yeah, we kind of went on the journey of basically I kind of looked at what I wanted to do and the product that I wanted to put out. I didn't necessarily want to be an alcoholic brand anymore, and that's something that I just learned from my own journey. Wanted to kind of be healthy and kind of offer healthy alternatives to consumers, and this is how we got to where OOMPH is today. So basically we want to provide an amazing tasting product that can give you the energy you want with the health benefits in just one can. And that's kind of the stage that we've got to now. But it was again, everything happens for a reason, and the synchronicities in me getting to the stage where I am at now is amazing. So the show ended and someone messaged me literally on Instagram who has a big drinks business, and they said, loved you on the show, your business isn't going to work, I want to give you some tips. So they sent me like 5 bullet points.
And you listened?
What are the chances of me seeing this message? So they sent me 5 bullet points, and I was like, oh God, they look like quite good advice. I was like, please, can I call you, unknown person? So I called them, and they gave me loads and loads of advice, and they were so nice. And they were like, look, I'm only helping you because my mum loved you on The Apprentice, and we were once in your position, because they'd started from the bottom 3 years ago.
Who was it? What company?
It's a company called Tapped Cocktails, and they're now one of the best ready-to-drink cocktail companies in the market. They started 3 years ago from their literal kitchen, and now they are absolutely huge. So James gave me a phone conversation just to give me some advice. I was thinking to myself when we ended the phone, I need a business partner. I really like the sound of this person. He's got all of the experience that I need. So I was like, you know what have I got to lose? So I just called him up like, do you want to come in on my business? He was like, no. So I was like, okay, that's that. I tried. And then a day later, he called me back up and he said, oh, we really liked your energy. We really think that you'd be good to work with and we do want to come in on the business. So I was like, oh my gosh, because I was looking for a business partner off the back of the show. And if I wouldn't have just been a bit cheeky and had that one call and been like, please come and work with me, then maybe none of that would have happened. So then we went in and we kind of came to an agreement on how they were going to come in on the business. And then we did our market research. We looked at the markets. So initially we decided to take out the protein, but we were going to be a healthy alcoholic drink in terms of like it was infused with B vitamins. But then we looked again and we were like, do we really want to be promoting like drinking and health at the same time as such? So then we analysed the energy drink market and we were like, there's a really big gap here and this is the way that the kind of market's going. So we did a lot more development, a lot more research, and then we concluded on the product that we have now, which is OOMPH, which I just feel so happy. Like when we made all of those decisions and those changes, I was like, this is right, this is the way the market's going, it's commercially viable, it's healthy, it's what I want to promote. It feels like me in a product. So when we got there, and it's just like having the expertise of James and Luke, who are from Tapped, to help me along the way with it. It would have been a lot of a harder journey, and there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. I was probably a bit naive initially, thinking that I would have been able to definitely do it on my own. But again, it all worked out because even though I kind of started in an industry that I didn't have experience, it still worked out. And that is what I mean, where it's just like trust the universe and trust your instincts and just go with it, take all the opportunities that arise. And now we're in a position where we're going to be launching literally within the next 6 weeks. So it's really exciting. Wow. Really exciting. Yeah.
Congrats.
So, thank
Congrats.
you.
I'm really happy for you. That's amazing.
I'm so happy.
It's strange. I sat in this room with, do you know David Birtwistle? You familiar with him? He was on, what's the Netflix series, Too Hot to Handle.
Okay.
Same thing. Slid in the DMs. And he actually replied, and it turned out to be a Netflix series.
Oh my gosh!
It's like that's why when we talk about goals, there's this thing called attachment theory, right? Yeah. Don't get too attached to the goal, or the target, as we were talking about earlier. Don't get too attached to the target because you miss other opportunities that might be presenting themselves elsewhere. Absolutely. So if you'd have just stayed on this goal of like this alcoholic protein drink or healthy protein alcoholic drink, you might have missed the DM. Absolutely. You might not have answered the DM. Yeah. If you were too stuck in your head, you might not have replied. You'd be like, who are you giving me advice? Yeah. You know?
And this is something that I've been saying to people as well. Like, you can have an idea, but you need to listen to experts. The people that were giving me this advice were where I wanted to be. I would have been foolish to not listen and kind of have tunnel vision and be like, no, my idea is correct. I'm really glad that I was able to kind of put my ego aside, because I'd gone on the show with this idea that I'd been preaching was a fantastic idea, and to then completely change it. Some people, you know, they were like, well, you've gone on with this idea and you've completely changed. But no, I adapted it, and we did research and we looked at what consumers want, and we followed market trends, and we want to put something out that we know that people are really going to enjoy. And you just have to put your ego aside, and I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. You have to follow the trends and the data, and you have to really, really make sure that the research process that you do in the product, you listen to what's being said. And I'm glad that I was able to just not have tunnel vision and kind of look further out at what there is. And now we've got an amazing product, and this product feels so right to me. I love the brand, I love what we're offering, I love the benefits, and I just feel like it just feels completely right, and I'm just so happy.
I can tell there's this real balance between like you listen to your intuition, but honestly your intuition only gets you so far when you don't have the education. So you find that mix of like real hard work where you're being educated on that journey and listening deeply to like your intuition of what's right for you. But as you said, so critical, like we spoke about before we started, didn't we? Like that person in our life is like 5 years ahead of where we are, or 10 or 15 or whatever they are, like is game changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. And then also having someone that you can see that's done it, it makes it seem so much easier, because you're like, wow, this isn't just something that I've just plucked out of thin air. Someone has done this, I can do it. And I think that that's really motivational. So to the point that we are now, when I started writing my manifestations and my goals, I said I want to be launching my own product. I didn't even know what it was at that point. I just said, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to launch a product, I want to launch a healthy drink. And now here I am. And if all of those things wouldn't have happened, The Apprentice, finding my business partners, all of these things, there's no way that I would be able to be in this position now to like be doing my goal and like doing what I always wanted to do. And it's so amazing to look back and see the journey that you've come on. And again, I take it all back to reading the materials, learning the materials and putting the practices in. Literally changed my life. And it's amazing. I love it. It's so, so good. And yeah, so the business now, we're so happy and we're launching in 8 weeks.
Wow. So exciting.
Yeah.
So you got 3 flavours, right?
That's correct. So the 3 flavours that we have are blood orange, fruit punch, which is 5 fruits, and then also purple rain, which is black cherry and sharp lemon.
Nice.
Yeah, they're so nice. Purple rain is my favourite, but I will leave for you guys to decide which one you like the most. But yeah, perfect for like, instead of just grabbing like quite a heavy coffee as well, like you can now have a healthy energy drink, and it's only 8 calories in a can, no sugar. So
And you going D2C, or you said you're pitching to some retailers as
we're
well?
doing both. So yeah, we're going to go direct to consumer through our main website, but predominantly we want to get into all the main retailers. So we're looking gyms, supermarkets. We want to do festivals and sponsor festivals as well.
Nice.
So we are going everywhere. So I've got a festival called Bread and Jam, which is where I get to pitch to like all of the big retailers. So we've got like Ocado, Holland and Barrett, everyone like that. So yeah, plan is basically mainly to be B2B.
Great.
And then do some through the direct website.
And what about raise? Are you raising, or are you?
So at the
is
moment,
it funded through the guys?
it's funded through my business partners. We're going to get to a certain level in terms of profit, and that's when we'll have to go and get big investments.
Cool.
So we're going to try and find an investor. Lord Sugar, hopefully, I'll be coming back.
And what about strategy as far as like location? Are you going to go to the US?
So we have actually already look at going overseas as well. So specifically in America, there is a very big market for this. So we're looking at America and also Australia as well. My business partners are already in talks with the retailers in different countries as well. So we are planning to expand beyond the UK because there's big markets out there for them. The great thing is they're tapped cocktails as well. They're already going in and branching into these other markets.
Who are tapped cocktails? What
So this
drinks
is-
do they have?
Basically, so it started off hotels and things like that. They can't really train mixologists so much because there's quite high staff turnover. So it's basically tastes like a brand new mixed cocktail but in a bottle. And they started off selling them to like hotels and things like that so that they could mix it up.
Yeah.
And then they've now bought them out in ready to drink cans as well.
And is it called tapped?
Yeah, called
Okay.
TAPP''D.
Cool.
And they are the best tasting cocktails ever. They are amazing, honestly. They're such a good brand. You guys should look them up. And they're now basically everywhere. They've taken over the cocktail market. So they are already in a lot of the retailers. So my business partners can kind of help you get straight in with oomph as well. So the doors that have been opened are just absolutely amazing.
I bet the network.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Like the thing that's just jumping out at me, right, is most of us, in fact, nearly all of us, are trying to achieve something that's already been done.
Yeah.
So all of us can find somebody who's further down the journey than us. Whatever we're dreaming about, there's very few Elon Musks out there who are doing something that's never happened before. Completely different journey, different breed. Most of us included, we're creating something special, but something similar has been done before.
Yeah.
So we can always find someone to help us on that journey rather than go solo and take 10 years more or whatever it might lead
Absolutely.
to. So
And it just makes it seem so much more attainable as well when you can kind of see that there's people out there that have done it. Just try and find them and add them on LinkedIn and just spam their messages if you're looking for something until they reply. But the thing is, we've got social media, we've got technology. It's easier to get in touch with these people than you think as well.
that's it. This whole like 7 degrees of separation, it's like 1 or 2 now to everybody.
Literally, it's
But
crazy.
you've got to do the work first and be represented the right way.
Yeah.
Like you came across so well on the show and you did so well. That's why it happened.
Yeah.
You don't get it for free.
Yeah.
This has been amazing.
Oh, I've loved this. I don't want the conversation to end.
Well, we can carry on talking after. We finish with the same 3 questions at the end of
Yes.
every episode. Quick fire questions. So, one thing you're particularly excited about that you've either come across or discovered recently?
The one thing that I'm most excited about definitely is going to be the launch of my business and becoming a female entrepreneur and basically just seeing where I can elevate this business to and the levels that we can take it because
Awesome.
I feel so proud of it. So that is what I'm looking forward to doing this next chapter in my life and launching oomph.
And are you going to be CEO or what's like the role there?
So the way that we've done it at the moment actually is I've also brought my mum in on the business with me. So she is kind of like already in on the directors. So I'm going to go in with the CEO role initially and then James, Luke and my mum are going to be the directors. But then once we kind of hire more people in, we're going to work out the structure of the business.
Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, one habit you would encourage all listeners to incorporate into their day?
Definitely, I'm going to say 2 because they link in. It's going to be meditation and practicing gratitude, because the way that they affect your base level of emotions and the way that you feel is crazy. Every single day, it slightly elevates me more and more positively. So my base level now of emotion is really highly positive, whereas a few years ago, it was completely up and down. So gratitude practices and meditation.
What is the meditation that you do?
I do something called eco meditation. I've been reading an amazing book which is called Mind to Matter by Dawson Church, and it is such a good book. But they talk about eco meditation, which is basically a normal meditation practice, but you tap certain areas of your body. They're only 15-minute meditations, but they really feel amazing, and it's all free. So I just downloaded the book on my Kindle, and then all of the resources and the meditations are free. So I recommend this book so much. It's a lot about energy. Basically, they do scientific experiments about how energy can affect matter, and some of the results that come back are absolutely crazy. So I would really recommend that book.
This is stuff of like how you freeze things and how like the shapes that come in.
And how they can change it. And it's about healing. So it's people that claim that they have healing powers per se, and they can project energy into cancerous cells and they can make the cancer go away. But not only when they're directly with the object, they could be like thousands of miles away. And as long as the intent was the same, it had the same effect on healing. It was crazy. And it's all like scientifically backed up. So
Crazy.
Mind to Matter by Dawson Church.
Sounds like some Stranger Things.
Yeah,
11
it literally
powers.
is an 11 power is what I was getting. I was like, this stuff's real. And they talk about a collective consciousness, which is something I'm just coming on to learning, but about how we're basically all connected in one conscious field.
Yeah.
I'm just learning about it now, but I really like the idea of that.
Yeah,
So.
we are all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why
We're
we can't
connected.
compete with each other, because we
Yeah.
are each other.
Yeah.
Last one. Take yourself back to a particularly challenging moment.
Yeah.
Imagine that there's 2 versions of yourself, right? What I want you to think about is the difference between the version of yourself who's gone on to be on the show, perform so well, and then that's led you to today sitting in front of me, speaking so articulately and talking about the business and everything that's going on in your life, versus the version of yourself that wouldn't have gone on to do all those things. What's the key difference?
So I think that the version that wouldn't have gone on to do all these things would have been my past self, where I allowed fear and other people's opinions to stop me from doing something. Because the biggest fear that I had when it came to applying and going on the show was honestly worrying about what people were thinking, worrying that I was going to fail, and worrying that I was going to embarrass myself and go out first and whatnot. I battled through those and I said, I don't care. This is going to change my life if it can go well. And I just put faith in the process. I went out and did it. I faced my fears, and that's where I am. So that precipice literally was, if you're scared, you just have to battle through it. Your brain will give you so many fake alternative situations that never even end up happening. These scenarios are never going to happen. Why was I worrying about them? And there was a part of me, honestly, that almost didn't apply because I thought that I wouldn't get on. Genuinely. And then I remember thinking, oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it anyway. And thank God I did, because I got on the show and it all worked out amazingly. So definitely that the different me would have been the one that was too scared to put myself out there and do it, but the one that did happen is the person who put themselves out there. So that's what I would take it back to.
Nice. Yeah, thank God you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Brittany. It's been amazing.
Thank you
I really
so
loved
much.
it.
I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
Thank you.
You have reached your destination.
Hey, it's Mark Whittle. Thanks so much for watching or listening. It's so great to have you a part of the Take Flight movement. Subscribe to the podcast on all platforms, video and audio, to be the first to see new episodes and new conversations with the greatest minds in the world. Follow me at markwhittle_TF on all social platforms, and visit takeflightworld.com to join our growing community of hustlers, performers, and go-getters. I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, stay positive, stay motivated, and of course, take flight.